Well, boys, today I'm going to tell you another story from the life of Father John Gerard. You may recall, some of you who came last year, I told an anecdote from his life. In that case, we saw how he escaped imprisonment and capture by remaining in a hiding place, a cleverly contrived hiding place under a fireplace, for 4 days straight. He had no food or water, but he was saved from the priest hunters capturing him. So the setting is in England during the time of the Great Persecutions. This is the 16th century. And at that time, the Catholic faith was forbidden under pain of imprisonment, so many lay people were imprisoned for life even, and their property was taken away from them. And then priests, if they were caught, they were put to death. And anyone who should help a priest in any way to exercise an apostolate in England, he was also subject to death. And death was conducted in the most gruesome manner. So these men were very brave, these priests and lay people who helped the priest. Today, I'm telling you now another story, so it takes place after he escaped that capture. It was not long after he escaped that he was actually betrayed by a fellow friend into the hands of the enemy. And so he was taken prisoner, and he was tortured under excruciating pains for 2 days straight. They tried to get information from him. He would not give it. He was very strong. He prayed very hard, especially to his guardian angel for strength. So after they got tired of torturing him, they just committed him to the Tower of London. That was the principal prison of England. It's a very large, it still stands today. It's a very grand and large fortress. So he was there, and for 6 months, more than 6 months, he was there. And he found another Catholic who had been there for 10 years. And that man, he was there because of the faith. He had a wife who was not imprisoned, and she, throughout the years, was able, over time, to prevail upon the jailer to let her bring certain comforts to her husband. She would bring care packages, baskets with fresh clothes and even some food, other goodies. And so, doing this for many years, she now was able to do it quite freely. They did not really take much care to check the packages she brought. So when Father Gerard heard about this from his friend, he got the idea that they could try to escape, because he was able to get to the roof of above his cell where he was kept. He was able to get to the roof of the wall of the tower, and he could see the shore across the great moat. It's about 40 yards wide, filled with water, but he could throw a rope, he thought, across this moat and escape. So he did not have a rope, but he was able to get through this lady a strong string, which he would be able to throw across the moat. And then he was able to contact some friends he had outside the prison. He wrote letters to them, asking them if they would be willing to risk their lives to bring a ship that would carry them away if they should escape from the moat. And so his friends, they agreed. He had 2 friends, and so they came with a boat, and they appointed a certain night. And it was at midnight that Father John and his friend, his fellow prisoner, they were on the top of the tower wall waiting for this boat. And they saw him approaching at midnight, but then lo and behold, a nearby cottage outside the prison took notice of this ship approaching at a strange hour. And they thought they were fishermen, so they cried out to them. And now therefore his friends in the boat, they acted like they were fishermen. They started to make as though they were fishing to avoid suspicion, and they were successful. However, they were not willing to come closer to try to actually fulfill the plan of escape, because they didn't want to be noticed by the men in the cottage. And so they waited. They were hoping those men would go to sleep, and then they could resume their plan. But by the time that happened, it became so late that they no longer were able to follow through with the plan. There was not enough time in the night. And so they tried to leave, and they would hope to come back another day. But however, those men in their boat trying to leave the channel, they met with the rising tides now because morning was approaching. And those tides were rushing so violently that their little boat was stuck against a barrier. It was lodged on some large rocks, and they were not able to free it. And the water kept rushing in, so much so that it was seen by Father Gerard on the wall that they would soon capsize and probably drown. And so he and his friend began to pray very fervently for the safety of his friends now outside the prison. And so it happened that at length another ship came by with 6 strong fishermen who saw them, and they took pity, and they threw ropes to them and saved their lives. And no sooner had they drawn them out of their little boat, and it capsized. No doubt it was the intervention of their guardian angels that kept the boat afloat long enough for them to escape. Now, having witnessed all of this, that first night, the first attempt, it was quite a failure, and Father Gerard now was quite dismayed. He thought for sure his friends would not be willing to try again after such a night when they almost lost their own lives. And so he received the following morning a letter from his friend. And now these letters that they exchanged, they were able to speak about their plan of escape because they had contrived a natural way of making invisible ink by way of orange juice. So, and in any case, his friend wrote to him saying, and he received a letter, and expecting to hear that he was not willing to continue with this attempt, Father Gerard was very much torn because he desired so much to be free again, to be able to help souls and to receive the sacraments again. So he took the letter to his room and he fell on his knees and he beseeched God and he offered himself to God, saying, God's will be done. Whatever you have in store, your providence will direct my life. It was in your providence that these men did not succeed in that first attempt, and so I accept it as thy will. And so he prayed for a little while, and then he opened the letter. But to his great surprise, it was not what he thought it would be. His friend, he saw it another way. He said, well, I see that it was not in God's providence we should succeed the first night, but he spared our lives so that we can try again. Not only did his friend, he was very pious, and he prayed about it too, and he saw it that God wanted him to free this priest, and he was not afraid to risk his life again. And so Father Gerard was very much comforted at those words. Sometimes children, boys, and everyone remember that all God actually is asking for us, he's waiting for us before he hears our prayer, is that total sacrifice of our will, of our desires, of anything we want, or of any distress we desire to be freed from. He wants us to put ourselves entirely in his hands, and once we've done that, he will many times he will then give what we want. So in any case, this following night, they tried again. The boat came with no problems to the appointed place on the shore, and then Father Gerard, he tied a lead ball he had acquired in the prison to the string brought by the lady, and he cast it some 40 yards out over the exterior wall of this moat, and then his friends, they tied to the string a strong rope they had brought on their ship, and then Father Gerard and his friend, with great effort, they pulled this rope back towards themselves to tie it off on the top of the roof of this prison. So having done this, they were met with another difficulty they did not expect. It was such a wide moat that now the rope they thought would be quite slanted was almost horizontal, meaning it would take a lot of physical effort to get themselves across. They would not be able to slide down. And Father Gerard, at this point, it was 6 months after his torture, he had just begun to get feeling back in his fingers because he had been suspended for many, many hours, and he was very weakened by that. But at this point, they knew they couldn't go back anyway, and it would be better to try to attempt to be free than to live their lives in this prison forever. So they went on. His friend went first, who was of much more vigorous bodily health, and he got across quite without any problems. But when he did so, he made this rope, he stretched it out by his body weight, so now it was even draping down into the moat, making Father Gerard's crossing, it would be much more difficult. So he invoked his holy guardian angel, and then he grabbed the rope and started his way down. And he tells us that, so he first tried to climb on top of it and slide so with his face facing downwards, and he made a little way before he lost balance and he flipped underside of this rope. And he said he almost lost his control and almost fell into the moat, which would probably have killed him because it was about 10 stories high, and the water was not so deep that he would save him from such a fall. But he hanged on, and he kept praying to his guardian angel, and then he kept working his way down. He got so far as the opposite side of the moat, the wall, but now it was, as I said, draping, so he had to climb up again, and he did not have the strength to do that. He was about to give up, and then somehow, he said his friend, who had already gotten to the shore, somehow he appeared on the wall and was able to grab him and pull him out of that. And his friend, afterwards, when he asked him about it, his friend did not even know how he got back on the wall. It was his guardian angel. He had carried his friend instantaneously to that wall to give Father Gerard the assistance he needed. So he was eventually, at length, out of this moat, and they made to their ship, and they were escaped, and he was, from that day forward, he never again was captured. And he, for many years, helped many, many souls to return to the faith, to confess their sins, and to save their souls. So boys, remember our lessons for today. Be subject always to providence. Whenever you're in distress, whenever you want something, first make the sacrifice of your will, first and foremost. And then you can look for a way out, you can look for a solution. And then, of course, never forget to pray to your holy guardian angel. Know they are very powerful and they have great care for you. May God bless you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.